So you're thinking about moving to Nashville, Tennessee, or surrounding areas, and you're a little bit uncertain in these times where you get a lot of information from experts about that the market is going to crash, the real estate market is going to crash, property values are going to go down. Well, we're just going to talk about what's going on here in Middle Tennessee and give you some straight facts. So that being said, let's get after it right now. Hey, if this is your first time to this channel and you want to know everything there is about living in Nashville and surrounding areas, then hit the subscribe button, tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know about the current market in Nashville. My name is Indro, and today I invited my partner Robert. So we are going to talk about what's going on in Middle Tennessee and what's going on with the real estate market, and we're going to give you some straight facts. So not opinions, but literally some straight facts. And, let's just start actually with what we're seeing in the mortgage industry with applications and what the interest rates look like. And so what we're seeing is at this point, and this is based on October. So we talked to a couple of lenders, and what they're seeing is that the highest interest rate for October 2022 was 8.125%. Now, you might wonder, that is a pretty high interest rate, but the reason why is that it has to do with a cash out refinance. So that is always higher than a standard mortgage application for, buying a home. So that's why that was a pretty high interest rate. Now, if we look at the lowest one we saw, which was 6.125%. Again, the reason why, and it's nothing really special, that just has to do with a good debt to income ratio, good credit score, really nothing special, nothing extraordinary. So that's why we were at a lower interest rate of 6.125%. Now, the average interest rates we saw was about around 7%. So as you can see, if we compare it to 9 months ago where we were at 3% or maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower, we are at a very higher interest rate. However, we cannot predict, of course, what it will look like in 2023. But these are the straight facts where the interest rates are at right now. So, and the interesting part is that we also see, with interest rates being higher, is that we do see that the mortgage applications are kind of like going up and down. And the reason why is that we do see that some buyers are getting interested because, they're getting used to the new normal. So they want to see hey, with those new interest rates, am I able to buy this property that I'm interested in? Am I able to get pre-approved for a mortgage? So that is why we're seeing that the mortgage applications are going up and down at this point. All right, so that's what we can say about the mortgage applications. But now let's go to our second item, which is is the market here in Middle Tennessee really slowing down? Is it crashing? Robert's going to talk about this a little bit more.
Oh, man. I am so excited to talk about this topic, and I have to compliment you, Indro, because not enough agents are sticking to the facts. You've got a lot of people who go on social media just to write headlines and be polarizing and be one extreme or another extreme. Now's the best time. Now's the worst time. I always say, what's the data tell us? And that's what we're going to focus on today is what is the actual data? What's actually happening in the market? Because none of our opinions matter. All we have is to work off of what we have right now. So let me tell you this. Right off the bat, we had over 63,000 closings in October for just Middle Tennessee. That is not an indicator of a crashing market. You know why? Because people don't sell and people don't buy when they believe that the market's going to crash. And like you even mentioned with the mortgage applications going up and down, if those numbers were so extraordinarily high that nobody wanted to do them, then it would just be plummeting, going down and down and down and down for mortgage applications. So right off the bat, some of the stats that I personally want to bring up is our local MLS, which for anyone who doesn't know what MLS is, this is where all real estate agents in their area go and list their properties 9 times out of 10. So it gives us a really accurate look of what's happening in our local market. I am going to share that screen and I'm going to dive into those stats right now. So some of the stats that are really important to go over today is one, sales price, because what's some of the news you heard? Sales prices are plummeting. Everything's crashing down. So we're going to look at the sales price, median sales price since 2009. And why 2009? Because that was an actual crash. And we compare it to now. And as you can see here, from 2009 all the way up to 2022, and it keeps going. If we wanted to keep going, you would turn around and see that we continue to steadily rise. And in fact, in the last few years, we saw a steep incline. Now, does that look like a crash to you? It does not. Even if we look into leading 2009 and coming out there, there was still a slight dip. But here, it's just rising and rising. Another important indicator is not just that the sales prices over the course of the last few years, but also just the 12 months alone, and of course, month over month going up steadily, is what percentage of the list price is being sold. So we're going to go over to that. Now, if you look over here, what we're seeing here is the percentage of the list price being sold. And what that means, and I'm going to go over to the average because this actually gives us a better look than median once that loads. But what this means is this is showing us, and this is really, really good, guys. This is showing us how much are people actually paying for the home. So let me give you an example to make sense of this stat. Let's say that you list a home for $300,000. This stat is showing us, are people generally buying it for more than $300,000, exactly at $300,000, or less than $300,000? In a crashing market, all you're going to see is the list price going down of what people actually pay, right? Listed 300,000, they pay 280, 260, just like we saw in 2009. I mean, look at even back in 2009, people were paying 96% of the list price on average. Remember, these are averages here. Now look up here. We start to see this continue to rise. Now we're paying over 101%, and it dropped down to October. And even in October, it sat at 100.5%. Does that sound like a crash to you? And that's why it's important. Now, that's a good and a bad thing, right? It's a good thing if you're a buyer, because what that means is you're not having to pay $50,000 over list price just to try and compete. And we're going to get into really diving into why is now a good time to buy or sell, right? I'm going to answer those in just a few minutes. But it's also for the sellers too, showing that your property value is not plummeting. Has it gone down from the overinflated price? Yes. But you're still getting what you need out of this. And a good agent is going to make sure that this deal is always profitable for you.
I 100% agree with you. And I think what you're mentioning right there, that it is definitely key right now, especially if you're a seller, is to make sure that you list your property at a price that is reasonable. So you're not going to be able to depend on a buyer coming in, paying you 20K, 30K over asking price. So now it is really important that you determine a correct market value if you still want to sell your property on this market.
And that's why we kind of get into the days on market average. Most people don't want to sit on their house. They want to get the money and go do whatever they want with it, right? Buy a new house, move somewhere, pay off debt, downsize, whatever. So factoring in how you price your home is really important. Now we're looking at 14 days as the new average for days on market, which is extremely different from earlier this year. Now it doesn't really show it because the only problem with these stats is that they are averages, which means that homes that sell in 24 hours and homes that took a year to sell are all factored in. Fortunately, though, Indro, as well as myself, are local agents that are hyperactive in our community. So here's what we can actually tell you with filling in some of the blanks that the stats don't necessarily show on this. Really, we're sitting for homes that are priced just above market average. So let's say that's 400K. Homes that are sitting around like 425, 450, they're going to be on the market for an average of about 21 to 28 days. That's more accurate. That's a lot more accurate, and you need to know that. However, homes that are priced under or below or very competitive pricing will often sell within those that kind of 7 to 14 days, right? So I wanted to give that clear picture because stats aren't perfect, right? They just crunch data, but sometimes you need to interpret that data a little bit, and that's why I wanted to bring that up. because that includes homes. Like I'm looking at a home right now for an investment, and it's been sitting for 368 days. Well, that one's included in this, right? So it offsets the average a bit. All right. So with that being said, the other thing we need to look at is, are more homes coming on the market? Now, this is really important. If you notice back in, there we go, January and February, we saw this huge dip. That's last year and this year. Now, that's actually really normal. I want you to see this chart because when you see a dip, everybody freaks out. So let me explain this. Nobody wants to move in January. They just recovered from Christmas. It's the new year. It's cold. They generally don't want to move. This is completely normal. And these extremes over here, this is because this was the beginning of COVID right here in 2020. And so we had a lot of changes going on. People were changing their lives drastically. But if you notice, as the year went on, numbers went up. And even the slight dip here, it's still well above. Remember, we're talking about even crashes. Let's say the peak right here for new listings in the market. People are still trying to get rid of their properties during the crash. We're still well above that. And that's a really important thing, is to see that trend. Now, let's talk about a couple other things. For sure, we want to talk about pending sales. Once again, steady, 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 steady. Now, these are going to drop, but do you know why they're dropping right now? Because it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, it's cold, and there were drastic changes in interest rates. People are just kind of trying to wait the next month or two to see what's happening. There's nothing wrong with that, but that is not an indicator of a crash. Because if you continue to look at stats, you'll see them time and time again. As you get into colder seasons, stats drop, they go up, they drop, they go up, because people don't like to move around the holidays. I mean, could you imagine trying to get the Christmas tree taken care of and everything decorated and Christmas lights, all while you're trying to move to a new house and deal with closings and transactions? It's a nightmare. Now, if you need to do it, by the way, connect with Indro, because he's got a relocation service and, assets that will make your life so much easier. Shameless plug for you, buddy, but you've got great stuff that you help people with, especially for people who are relocating. So it's awesome. Now we look at closed sales. Hopefully I'm not breezing too fast, but again, we're seeing a steady increase time and time again, with a normal drop right towards the end of the year, and also with all the other circumstances that are going on in the market. How's that, Indro? Did I cover enough?
I think that is pretty accurate. And like you say, of course, we got that time right now where we're getting into the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas. And however, we do see that, some properties are staying a little bit longer on the market. They're not going away like after 1 day or 2 days anymore. So, some buyers are a little bit hesitant. They're thinking about, what's going to happen. They're worried. So they're a little bit hesitant with the interest rates going up as well. So that's why we do see people, especially buyers, are more cautious. And as well, sellers as well, they want to make sure that they're not listing their property too high so that it's still a good deal for everybody.
Completely agree. So
All right.
what do you think? Should we answer the two big questions?
I think so. I think it is very important. And let's start with the first questions that a lot of people have, like, what would it be now a good time to buy or not? And to be honest, my opinion, it all depends on your situation. If you are a homeowner and you got a property and you got a really good interest rates right now, let's say at 3%, and you consider about, like moving, you want to downsize, or you want to upgrade, you might be a little bit on the fence saying like, yeah, if I got to go buy a new property, it's going to be a bigger interest rate. I got to get a mortgage again. So I understand these concerns, and everybody has his personal reasons. So the first question you got to ask yourself, like, what is your personal motivation? Now, what we can do, tell you in this market right now, compared to like 9 months ago, if you want to buy a property, you got some advantages. And those advantages are that you can get a lot of incentives from sellers, meaning they're sometimes willing to buy down your interest rate. They're willing to help you with closing costs. You can actually negotiate again on price. You can also negotiate on repairs being done for the property. So those are definitely a lot of pros that we're seeing right now. And another thing I would like to ask, like just give an example, Robert, let's say, you got an interest rate of 3% right now, but you could get an interest rate at 2%. Would you refinance?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's say now in this market, you can get an interest rate at 7%, and later on you can get it for 5%. Would you refinance?
Of course.
I think everybody would say yes to those two questions. Now, here's the interesting part. So with this market right now, like I said, like once you buy a home and you bought the home, you can't negotiate anymore on purchase price. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I
So,
mean, the contract's closed. That's it.
exactly. So let's have a look 9 months ago where properties were going always over asking price. There was almost, let's say, a lot of contingencies were being left out of the contract. You could negotiate on repairs. Everybody wanted to sell their property in as is condition. You had to compete with probably 20 other buyers. You had to come with money out of your own pocket if the appraised value would be higher in your offer. So what happens is you got to come with money out of your own pocket. So what we can do right now in this situation, like I said, is you can negotiate with the seller. You can get repairs done. You can get it for asking price, or even sometimes you can get it below asking price. You can even negotiate on the appraised value. So here's the interesting part. If you can lock in a property right now, even below asking price, and you can refinance later in 2 years or in 1 year, doesn't matter when it happens, and you can refinance to 5%, you got a lower interest rate and you got a lower purchase price. So I
Yeah.
think that creates a huge opportunity in this market right now.
I would agree with you. And I think it's important too that for anybody who's concerned, sit down with Indro and his lender and have them do the math, because what you might be surprised about is, believe it or not, sometimes going back 9 months ago, paying $50,000 over the listing price at a 3% interest rate will actually often cost you more money than paying slightly under the list price now at a 5, 6, or even 7% interest rate. But most people just see the interest rate and they go, therefore, it must cost me more money per month. Don't do that to yourself, because you might actually be paying less per month despite the interest rates being higher, as long as you know how to negotiate and the numbers make sense. And that's where a good agent and a good lender come in handy, because they'll do the math and they'll work the numbers for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one thing we see as well, like a lot of lenders or mortgage companies, what they're doing as well, like I recently saw a lender coming up with let's say, a little bit of advertising, but it was interesting because what they were offering was a free refinancing if you would use their product. And, what happens, they do got like a little disclaimer, of course, but I think one of the conditions was you need to buy a property, or if you bought the property after minimum, you had to wait for 180 days. After 180 days, you could refinance for free. So we do see the
Great
lenders
deal.
are also adjusting to this market. They're trying to help out the buyers, because even though interest rates are higher, there are still opportunities to get another advantage.
It's really, really smart that you bring that up too. There's also things called assumable loans, 2-1 buy downs. There's so many options available in the market that, as long as the numbers make sense, it is absolutely a great time to buy if you are, of course, a buyer.
Absolutely. Now, let's just not talk only about the buyer, but let's say you are a seller. Why do you think it would be a good time for you to sell?
Here's the thing. Okay. So, one of the best things you said earlier was it's all about your situation. Here's the reality. I'm not going to be, and you're not one of those agents either, who just tell everybody, sell, 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 buy, 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 buy. No. What do you need? If you need to sell, you're going to need to sell regardless. You're going to need to have it happen. Your job transfer, downsizing. As long as the numbers make sense, it's still a good investment. That's why you have a good agent and good lender who make those numbers work for you. But here's the other side of it. We already know from Jerome Powell, for those who don't know who that is the head of the Fed. And he said, I'm going to keep raising interest rates, guys. He said that. All right. You wonder why the markets have crashed. Stocks have not looked great, because Jerome said that he's going to keep raising interest rates. So right now, as we saw in those stats, people were still paying 100.5% on average for their listing price. That's fantastic. Wouldn't you want 100% of the thing you said you need to get 100% of? Or do you want to wait until it's 99%, 98, 97, 96? And people are going to need to go to sellers and ask for even more help if the rates keep going up. That's the truth. So if you need to sell now while the stats and the data show us that people are still paying a reasonable price for reasonably priced homes. Because when that next rate hike goes up, what do you think is going to happen? People are going to ask for more seller concessions. They're going to ask for more rate buy-downs. They're going to ask for more repairs because their budgets are going to get tighter. Not only that, but the amount of buyers will dwindle. That's just statistical facts. You raise the interest rates, less people can afford the homes because of high interest rates. So your options of who you have to work with and how quickly you can close them will also diminish. So it's really important as a seller that if you need to sell, sit down, go over the numbers, make sure it makes sense. And if it does, have a strategic plan in place to maximize the fact that the average price is still 100.5%. Utilize that to your advantage and be partnered with people who know how to utilize it to your advantage. Plus, as an added bonus, if you are a seller who is also buying, then guess what? You're going to get all the buying perks. So you'll deal with the selling side. It's not going to be glamorous. It's true. It's not going to be like 9 months ago. There's not much you can do about that. That's called the market. But your life still needs to go on. And if you're a buyer, if you're a seller who's going to be a buyer, then you're going to get the buyer perks as well. Does that kind of answer the question?
Absolutely. I think that is very accurate what you're saying. We can wrap it up. And I think hopefully that gives everybody out there a little bit of a better perspective on what's going on here in Middle Tennessee and the Nashville area. Because, you hear a lot of rumors, you hear a lot of experts saying it's going to crash, it's not going to crash. So the only thing I feel what we can do at least is just give you the straight facts, what we're seeing based on actual data. And that data isn't lying, that we are definitely not in a market at this point where properties, their value are going down and the market is crashing. Absolutely not at this point.
Yeah. And it's important, I think, I probably should have said it earlier, but it's important to clarify the difference between a market correction, right? And plummeting home price values. Correcting, right? That means that something was overinflated. It didn't belong there. It wasn't based off data. It wasn't based off statistics. It was based off an anomaly, which was mob mentality. I need this house. We'll pay any price for this house. That doesn't mean the house is marketably and statistically that valuable. It just means in the moment, there was enough pressure and enough fear that people were willing to overpay. So something correcting itself is not directly correlating to a market crashing. The other thing to know is you got to be hyper local. There will be markets that suffer and there will be markets that grow. And that's a really important thing to indicate when you're looking at your stats and you're trying to figure it out is what is normal for your market, what's bad, and what's good, right? I think those are all really important things. And then I'd encourage anybody watching, if a lot of this was overwhelming, just sit down with Indro and let him and his partners sit down, go over the numbers for your house if you're selling, go over the numbers if you're a buyer, because clarity and making an informed decision will make you feel 10 times better. It'll either make sense or won't.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have any questions for us, for me, for Robert, you just hit a comment below. You got my email, you got my cell phone. Just give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, and we're happy to help you answer any questions you might have.
That's right.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and hope to see you until next time. Bye-bye.